Hey guys, my name's Shakima. This is way overdue as per my Instagram my Instagram story kind of said that I would be on here around about 9 p.m. It is now effectively almost 10:30, and I'm not mad at myself. It just kind of is what it is. My bad. I will continue to get better with my timekeeping. I do readings and stuff on Psychic Sofa, so sometimes I will run over depending on whether or not I'm on the phone to a client and if there's calls that kind of continues to come through. So, yeah, booked and busy, as they say these days. What I wanted to sort of speak about today for today's Tools for Using Tools Tuesday. I basically just wanted to speak a little bit about some of the things. So, Tools for Using Tuesdays, if this is your first time sort of coming across the video, as for me to be able to give you guys some insight on some tools for working with, I guess, little things that can assist you in your spiritual warfare. And today I just want to do a quick little brief on depression because it is during my last Tools for Using Tools Tuesday where I spoke about inner child healing, which I will be branching out and giving a lot more detail because there's a lot more to it, especially when we think or talk about shadow work, which is my main sort of skill set. That's really what I like to work with. I like to sort of unify the fragmented parts of ourselves that are, in different parts of time and merge them with the present version of ourselves, basically. Because a lot of the times we'll find that there's parts of us that still sort of linked to baggage of our past and it's affecting our current and present creating. So, all that being said, if you guys are interested in my services, then definitely be sure to hit me up, www.shakimabrown.com, or you can email me directly, that's shakima8@gmail.com. We'll be adding all the details in my description box below. And if you guys sort of enjoy my content, then feel free to donate as well. I'll also be adding my PayPal link down below. So, I will also be expanding on this for my Tools for Using Tools podcast. I'll be able to add the details, in the description box. If you guys do like my content, definitely be sure to comment, like, share if you care, and subscribe. Okay, and we'll be able to sort of just grow this community. I consider my tribe to be the life warriors living in full evolution warriors because this life thing is hard. Okay, like this, trying to navigate through working through expanding our consciousness and going through the whole evolution process and the human avatar, it ain't easy. And I is here. I'm sorry, I keep shaking the video, guys. That's my bad. I'm like utilizing my phone. And as you can tell, my energy is a bit active. So I'm going to stop now because the video is like pausing and freezing at times. But yeah, so wanted to touch in today about depression because I feel like it is one of the biggest killers. It is one of those demons that just continues to eat away at us. It mainly eats away at our solar plexus, and it generally is. It eats away at three main aspects of our chakras. I'd say it eats away at the solar plexus. It also has a lot to do with the third eye, because so the solar plexus is responsible for our willpower, right? It's responsible for our ability to manifest. And when we are in a state of depression, so when we are doing the dark night of the soul traveling, so when we're traveling to darker reflections of ourselves in thought, we get into low vibrational densities, which will just so happen to find us in contracts with the demon of depression. And when we're in those types of states, it's almost like, don't watch The Robe, guys, by the way. When we're in those sorts of states, it's almost like, the demon kind of has us in a place. And again, just to acknowledge this word, demons, guys, if you haven't seen any of my other videos, definitely go and check out my inner child healing, because I probably go a lot more deeper into description there. But demons, from my personal understanding of it, they are lower vibrational thoughts. And well, essentially demons are entities that attach themselves to our ego, and they do so through low vibrational thoughts. Okay, so the demon of depression, as I've just sort of like touched in on, will kind of show up when we are unmotivated, when we have a lack of confidence, when we have already got contracts in place with the demon of insecurity, that kind of stuff. Okay, and with those types of situations, when we're in those types of circumstances, it's almost like the deeper and deeper that we go into depression, the more and more we feed this particular entity, the more and more we feed the darkness within ourselves that wants to call more to be depressed about. So depression's essentially one of those types of vibrations that it's like one kind of sees no way out, or at least that's how it feels in the moment. So it affects our solar plexus, because it's taking our willpower to be able to navigate our way out of the situation. And that's kind of like what happens a lot of the times with depression. We go to the poverty state of consciousness, where we're looking at it from a lack perspective of what we don't have, rather than being focused on what we do have to bring more abundance into the space for ourselves. Now, with the solar plexus, when we have any kind of entities attached to our solar plexus, it really affects our ability to be able to manifest. It affects our ability to be able to bring to light the things that we are wanting or desiring from the heart chakra space, right? Because we are more or less in a place where our solar plexus is being harnessed by these lower vibrational thoughts and reflections of ourselves. And the third eye is generally responsible for forgiveness. That's kind of what it's there for. That's where we kind of tell our story. That's where we project our story, or receive our story projected into our third eye from the ethereal realm. And sometimes when we're going back to memories and the story is from a lack perspective, or even if we're looking at our current circumstances and it's from a lack perspective, we will find ourselves sinking into the densities of depression. And when we are in those states, it's more a case of us being able to say, hey, like, what is it about this situation that I need to be learning from at this present time? Those are some of the things that can really sort of like give you back control of the situation. Because when you're depressed, it's almost like you don't feel like you have any control of the situation. It's almost like you feel as though I'm hearing a ringing, like the guides are coming in to sort of give me some downloads about this space. Maybe I waited for divine timing, guys. That's probably why I'm here at 10:30. Okay. But yeah, so when we are in situations where we find ourselves sort of looking at our current circumstances from a lack perspective, it's more a case of reclaiming our control over the situation, reclaiming our power, if you will, over the situation, by saying, okay, what has this circumstance shown up to teach me about myself in terms of what's going on in my subconscious mind, right? And it's also to do with the crown chakra. So that would be the crown chakra, third eye, and solar plexus chakra that are affected by the demon of depression. Generally speaking, it will feed at the solar plexus and impact and affect the third eye and the crown chakra. And generally, this is, to be clear, guys, I will be doing all of my tools for using Tools Tuesday will be based on this kind of content, where I'll be talking about contracts and how we get into contracts with demons. My Tools for Using Tools podcast would actually go into a little bit more depth about my personal experience with the demon of depression that actually caused me to manifest an illness within myself, an ailment within my vessel. And this is kind of how these entities work, where we don't read the small print of the contracts, and if we're not careful, we find ourselves manifesting darkness. We find ourselves manifesting the things that we fear most, if you will. The things that are the things that we don't think that would potentially happen. Okay, like the demon of depression can actually cause us to go into so many contracts. A lot of the times the demon of depression causes infertility in women, and it also subsequently has impact on men's ability to create life as well. So we kind of have to be really careful when we're going into these contracts with these entities, and really define why we are feeling the need to formulate contracts with these entities as they show up, because they are tricky little buggers. Okay, when we're in a moment where we're most vulnerable is where these entities will creep in and try and let us see a way out, which is pretty much an illusion, because the only way out is to assist yourself. The only way out is to live in your power. The only way out is to know that you are the power that created your current circumstances. So you have the power to change your current circumstances, you know? And that's like one of the blogs that I'm writing for the healers new issue, and you'll be able to sort of get some more insight on my personal advice there as well. So I'll probably add a link to that in the description box at some point once that's live somewhere in the world. But for the most part, what I would say to you is that when the demon of depression shows up, it's pretty much just kind of letting you know that you are looking at perspectives. Well, you are perceiving your circumstances from a lack perspective, and it's more or less sort of saying to you as well that, how can I put it? You know, the story that you're telling yourself, this, the way that you're perceiving the story in your third eye, isn't necessarily serving you the best interest, because you're going into these darker realms of thought, and you're not able to really sort of give yourself the opportunity to claw your way out, basically, because you're so busy focusing on the negatives of the situation, rather than giving yourself an opportunity to maybe alchemize that negative perspective into more of a positive by seeing what it is here to teach you about yourself, what those circumstances are here showing up as a reflection of you, of something within yourself, of something within your DNA trapped within your subconscious mind, is showing you about yourself in this particular scenario. And put it to you like this, for instance, when somebody kind of like loses their job, or somebody that finds themselves in debt, because debt is actually creeping up as one of the biggest killers these days, which is interesting because the system is definitely a killer. But debt is one of those situations that drives people into states of depression, because it feels like the shit's out of my control, man. What do I do with this situation? And for the most part, when people kind of like find themselves in those types of scenarios, it feels like a lose-lose. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't get out of this. How am I going to navigate my way out of it? For some people, they actually go the complete extremes where they just take their lives because they just feel as though they are completely powerless. And for those people, I'm truly, truly sorry, but that was their path equally also as well. So, you know, I guess it wasn't personal, but it was for the purpose of their personal evolution. I'm sure wherever they are in spirit now, they're able to have more of an understanding of what that life taught them about themselves. What I will say though, for the most part, you know, even as I'm sat in this space at the minute, my sacral chakra has been doing the most today. So whatever entity has been like keeping me unmotivated all day today, right, within my sacral chakra, is kind of like clawing its way out at the minute. I can actually feel it making movements as we speak. But this is how these things sort of create through you guys. So you kind of have to be very careful when you're formulating contracts with these entities, these low vibrational thoughts that wants to take your light and turn it into darkness so that they can actually have an opportunity to live through a vessel. Like, they are literally living through you vicariously. um but when we're dealing with the demon of depression, when we're talking about stuff like debt, for instance, the one thing that kind of really does help is to be able to talk to the debtors, take control of the situation, give yourself an opportunity to see how bad it is, because in most cases when we're dealing with debt, we kind of like run away, we shy away from the problem, we don't want to face it, we kind of don't pick up the phone calls, we don't open the letters, we don't follow up with the checks once we do sort of even make contact with anyone. and I'm speaking from personal experiences here, so I can like fully 110% like attest to all of the above. But nonetheless, like once that sort of situation showed up, it was just kind of letting you know that, hey, like you are giving too much of yourself to situations. You aren't necessarily disciplined enough to be able to manifest in the way that you desire to manifest your circumstances around you. That's what debt is. It's a reflection of karmically what's going on within you. And when those situations kind of show up for us, it's more or less giving us an opportunity to say, okay, let me take a step back and have a look at what's going on within me. You know, what is my DNA sort of showing me about who I am and how I'm showing up in the world. And if we kind of take the time to actually just acknowledge that, if we take the time to just, you know, navigate through the process by realizing that we are as powerful as the situation that we created in the first place, we could actually really take an opportunity to alchemize that shit, pardon my French, into something that's a little bit more conducive to our actual power. Because in most cases, when these low vibrations show up in our lives, it's almost like we shy away from our power and we don't want to live up to all of who we think that we are. We just want to continue to be a victim of our circumstances, you know, and none of what happens is ever for you to be a victim of. If anything, it's more or less an opportunity for you to utilize that as a moment for you to become a victor by living up to the potential that is infinitely abundant within you. But for the most part, when we sort of find ourselves in situations where we're sort of in karmic circumstances of debt, and we come to realize that we are perhaps giving more than we are receiving, and not necessarily navigating through life in a way that is conducive to the balance within the universe. It's really a case of us taking a step back, addressing, okay, what can I do to be more open to receiving? Because that's what it is, generally speaking, about. Sometimes when there's an imbalance in our lives and we find ourselves in debt, it's more a case of us, when we are not balanced in terms of giving and not receiving, we need to learn how to be open to receiving, because a lot of the times people want these things but they're not open to receiving that which they desire to show up in their life, so they become a block to their own blessings. Again, I can attest to this. I have been such, continue to be such, and continue to peel back the layers and work through my own problems and issues with this particular darkness or darker reflection of myself that is, a blockage for me to be able to navigate to who I desire to be. But when we are sort of, you know, navigating through the process of those types of situations, I think one of the biggest things that I would say with depression is prayer, meditation, affirmations, a love letter to self, which is probably one of my biggest tools whenever I'm working with any of my clients, because for the most part, we're so busy focusing on self-criticism, we don't take enough time to actually acknowledge the things that we love about ourselves. We're so busy looking at the things that we don't like about ourselves, that we want to change about ourselves, that we want to evolve away from. We don't necessarily take the time to look at the things that are already so awesome about us, that we can actually, you know, expand on, that's already good. And another thing that I'd probably recommend are, as per usual, crystals. Definitely important for the process, because again, that's just one of the tools that I personally use, like external tools outside of something that is within my own power. um and you can just kind of like have a look at like some crystals online for yourself in your own time. A particular crystal that I would maybe sort of recommend is citrine. That's generally quite good. And there's loads of others. When you're talking about, you know, solar plexus as well, I would recommend fruits, bananas, you know, yellow, eating foods that are a color match to that solar plexus. And when we're talking about herbs, again, lavender is very good as far as it being a calming effect to be able to navigate through the process when we're dealing with stuff like depression. Rosemary is quite good, and chamomile is quite good. I'm always sort of recommending chamomile. And I guess for the most part, it's really just understanding that these things have shown up to give you an opportunity to realize, actualize the fact that you are more powerful than you thought that you were, and maybe this is just you being a little bit scared of you living up to your power, and that's fine too. For situations like that, you talk yourself through it. I think that's one of the things that we don't do enough, and I think that's one of the most important things to do when we're dealing with depression. Talk to yourselves. Talk to other people, yes, but talk to yourself, because for the most part, only you know the depth of what you're going through and where you're traveling mentally when you're dealing with depression. And at that point, only you can sort of really navigate your way through the situation. And sometimes it helps to actually talk to ourselves out loud, even. I probably talk to myself every single day about something that shows up in my life, because guess what? Nobody else knows what I'm going through in the way that I know my experience to be. And if I can't have a conversation with myself, why do I want to continue to go around having conversations with other people day in, day out? I probably know them better than I know myself, and that's not where I want to be ever in life. So I probably try to listen, if I have a conversation with someone for 10 minutes, I want to have a conversation with myself for 10 minutes afterwards to digress how I felt about that conversation. Because I'm not really out here trying to take on other people's projections, personalities, personas of themselves. I really am out here trying to really live in my authenticity. And that's what happens when we're dealing with depression. That's why it's the demon that is connected to our solar plexus, because it affects and impacts us being able to manifest as we truly desire, as I said at the start of the video, guys. And with that, the only way to know what we truly desire is to be able to have open conversations with ourselves, to be able to be completely honest with ourselves about how we feel about situations and how they show up in our lives. And sometimes to just say, look, I'm actually scared of this situation that's shown up. What can I do about it? Because that part of you that's scared in that moment, there's also another part of you that's already achieved living beyond that moment of fear. Do you know what I mean? Talk to that moment, that reflection of yourself that already has the answers for navigating through this particular process that you're trying to be mind boggled at navigating through. It's really a case of unifying every single aspect of ourselves. This is why I like to do shadow work. There's a past self that is affecting the present self, but there's a future self that's already surpassed this moment in time. And it's a case of having conversation with future self and letting past self know, hey, look, you're affecting what I'm trying to do right now. Can we compromise on maybe making the space a little bit more clear for me, And that's kind of where things get a little bit easier in the process, by understanding and understanding that we actually have so much more power over the situation than we thought that we did in the first darn place. Okay. Main thing is to love yourself as well, because I think when we're dealing with depression, it's definitely a case of, it takes us into darker travels where it's a lack of self-love moment. And that's probably my last and most important tip to you guys for this Tools for Using Tools Tuesday. Self-love is one of those vibrations that is, how can I put it? It is expendable to all of life's tests, trials, and tribulations, my darlings. Okay? But because it's late, I'm going to love you and leave it all there. Thank you guys for being awesome. Thank you guys for being superly divine. And thank you guys for just showing up for yourselves, because for the most part, it's easy for us. Hey, David. For the most part, it's easy for us to just kind of play victim to the things that show up in our lives. But that serves us no purpose. So what we're going to do is take some lemons and make some lemonades. Okay, guys? Love you guys. Keep being awesome. Mwah. Definitely check out the description box for all the details. I will have that in there at some point. Super, super busy, but I will try and get some stuff done for you guys. Thanks for being awesome as always, David. I'll catch you in the next one.